What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 177. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate you joining me on this episode and this channel where all we do is talk and discuss new movies. New movies that come out in theaters or in streaming. We'll break it down high level first, then dive into some spoilers, and then we wrap up the podcast by deciding, is this movie timeless? Is it something that I can see myself rewatching in the future various different times and maybe even owning as a Blu-ray? Now, on this podcast, usually I go solo or I bring on my brother so that we can voice our opinions. But who cares about our opinions? I want to hear from everybody that's listening here. So if you want to voice your opinions about some of the movies that we're covering, please reach out to me on any of the social media platforms that are in the description on this podcast down below, like Instagram, Blue Sky, or Threads. On all of those platforms, you can search Timeless Movie Podcast. You can follow me, message me on any of your own opinions or reviews and any questions that you might have. And there's also a email for the pod as well. It is timelessmoviepod@gmail.com. Reach out to me there as well. That way you can ask me any questions. I'll bring it up on the podcast and also anything that you might want to hear or listen to on this podcast as well. Speaking of hearing and listening, episode 176 of the Timeless Movie Podcast is available on all platforms like Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. Make sure you check out that episode because on episode 176, I talked all about a 2025 movie called The Secret Agent. I wasn't able to watch it in December. It was only in select theaters in LA, but finally in 2026, they made it available at a closer theater to where I live, and I got to check it out. So go listen to episode 176. That way you can hear my full thoughts on The Secret Agent. I hope you guys are having a great start to your week. I'm recording this episode a little bit earlier, February 10th for me, and it's only because I was able to check out a couple of movies earlier than usual. We have a packed weekend coming up for Valentine's Day. I think we have like 3 or 4 movies, and the big one is going to be Wuthering Heights, which we will be reviewing on this channel. But this week's movie was a film that we got to check out on Monday, February 9th, a little bit earlier, and it's called Crime 101. Now, I'm going to be honest, didn't see a lot of trailers, a lot of marketing for this movie, but as soon as I heard who the main stars of the cast were, I was all in. I heard Chris Hemsworth, Halle Berry, Mark Ruffalo. I'm in. And I start seeing different elements of crime thriller, a heist that could go on. And so they had me at that specific type of a theme. So let's stop wasting some time. Let's dive into some non-spoiler thoughts now that we got to check out the movie. All right, Crime 101 is directed by Bart Layton, who, if you aren't aware with his work, he's made a couple of projects for TV, but he's also made a couple of films like The Imposter and American Animals. In Crime 101, he has not only Chris Hemsworth, Halle Berry, and Mark Ruffalo, he also has Monica Barbero, Barry Keoghan, Nick Nolte, Corey Hawkins. So many different actors play a role in this film. But what is Crime 101 about? What is this whole story revolving around? It's actually pretty simple. We are introduced to the character of Mike, played by Chris Hemsworth. He is a master thief. He is skilled. He has done various different jobs and just found ways to make his runs of stealing different types of items non-violent. But there is something in his way from being able to capture the one big job he is looking for, that one job that's going to allow him to ride off into the sunset. And what is that one hurdle? Well, it's Detective Lou, who is played by Mark Ruffalo. Detective Lou is starting to actually figure out patterns and then find ways as to, well, why is this guy always stealing things and getting on the 101 freeway here in Los Angeles? So he starts connecting the dots and trying to figure out how he can stop Mike from pulling off his next job. The unfortunate part is that in this whole plan and this whole heist, other individuals and characters get involved with Mike, and now they are put at risk as well. So that's where I'm going to leave it in regards to the synopsis of this movie. What did I think, though, of Crime 101? Well, let me tell you, I thought this movie was a fun time at the theaters. I was really surprised. Again, I had mentioned it a little bit before. not a lot of marketing and only one trailer that I had seen. So my expectations weren't too high, but it kind of exceeded my expectations. I had such a good time with the characters. There was some fun performances. The film was 2 hours and 20 minutes, but never felt long. There was enough interesting action. There was enough interesting, situations that were going on with some of the characters. And, again, it didn't have to rely on intense action. There was enough in the movie for you to kind of gravitate towards some of the characters and their life and their situations. So, again, I just found this movie really fun. A couple of other fun things that I want to call out are going to be in the pros section. So let's segue into the pros of Crime 101. That way I can describe more about what I liked about this movie. Okay, first pro of Crime 101 that I want to call out. This is going to be a crazy bias, but I live in LA. So my first pro is going to be the setting of Los Angeles in Crime 101. Now, how I want to distinguish this is that, there's a lot of movies that take place in Los Angeles, but what I really appreciated about Crime 101 is that they didn't shy away from highlighting all of the good and the bad of Los Angeles. Too many times, films will highlight LA as this beautiful, sunny place, all these different types of scenic, areas of the beach and all this stuff. And Crime 101 doesn't do anything differently in that kind of way. But where they do kind of go in a different route is they also show the bad side of LA sometimes, like certain streets that have a lot of homeless people and how the city hasn't really done a good job to help the homeless find their own place. They show all of the different types of areas, like they show downtown LA, but all smoggy, how it actually looks on a normal day. And so I just wanted to call that out. I know that it's not really going to be a pro for everybody else, but to me, I really appreciated how they showed all the different aspects of LA. They showed jardineros and gardeners in LA. They showed taco stands. They showed people selling flowers by the off ramp in a freeway. All this different stuff. They show traffic. That's another big aspect of mine is when you're going to show LA, show the traffic. It's real. And so that's going to be my first pro. I really liked how they represented all of Los Angeles in Crime 101. Second pro for me is going to be the slick editing in this movie. I mean, it was outstanding how they were able to transition and move scene to scene in this film. And it kind of surprises me that we don't see that more often from filmmakers in movies. You know that you have to really tell a clear story and you want your audience to stick with you the entire way. Why not make these very smooth transitions where, like, in example, Crime 101, you have a character who is, leaving their desk and they're putting stuff into their actual bag. And then it just smoothly transitions into another character pulling out stuff from their bag, starting their workday. And so it's things like that. Or there's aspects where you have a character who is driving stuck in traffic. And then in the background, another main character is also driving and it just smoothly goes into their car and it starts playing out the story of what their day is looking like. It's just those little details that I really love that it immerses me into the world that you're trying to set up in a movie. And again, it just really shocks me that we don't see more movies these days try to connect those dots, try to have your characters that are, especially when you have a star-studded cast like this, have them interact, have them just be in the background, have them just in some way connected. So the editing of this movie was incredible. The last movie I saw that had just these smooth transitions like this was No Other Choice by Park Chan-wook. That film had some awesome transitions as well. So go check that one out if you haven't seen it. But just want to call that out, the really awesome editing of Crime 101. Last but not least, final pro of Crime 101. For me, this is going to be my interpretation, but my favorite thing about this movie was the way that they kind of represented crime, or at least how I'm interpreting that they're trying to show what crime really is nowadays. I know that it deals with a heist. It deals with a thief. He wants to make millions and ride off into the sunset. But to me, I think the film is trying to shed light and point that, hey, maybe thieves, although bad, maybe they're not the main focus. Maybe the real crime, the real criminals are rich people, are these corporations that are holding people down, or really, in essence, all these systems that we're all a part of, corporations and the structure, the hierarchy, that is the real criminal aspect in our lives. You have people in this film that are, by their bosses, not given the promotions that they're looking for, even though they've worked hard and they've earned it. And these systems, again, they're the criminals. They stop these individuals from getting to the places that they want to. They hold them down. Other specific jobs and these kind of corporations, you know, tell people, hey, fall in line. Don't try to be a maverick. Don't try to be a rebel. Follow what other folks are doing and make sure that it's in our best interest to make the entire group look good. So I don't know if this entire pro makes sense, but in my mind, I really enjoyed that. My interpretation of this film is that it's not the obvious crime of stealing that is the focus of this movie. It's actually the rich and these corporations that are the true criminals, and we should probably be focusing more on that. How are rich people really getting around taxes and evading them? How are they still continuing to make more money while everybody else is struggling? So that whole aspect and the representation of how structures in the US at least are really the true criminals in our society. All right, couple of cons that I had. I didn't think this movie was perfect. And so the first con and nitpick that I wanted to bring up was there was a couple of characters. I'm not going to call them out here, but in the spoiler section, I will. There was a couple of characters that I just couldn't understand what they were saying. The dialogue was either too quick or they were muffled in some way. And so I really couldn't capture what some of these characters were saying. I did notice that it was in intense action scenes. So it could have been done on purpose, but I don't know. To me, I always want to make sure that I capture what a character is saying or what they're trying to explain to another character in a scene. And when I can't capture that, like my mind tries to race and fill in the gaps. And that's usually not the best case scenario. So that's a little nitpick on my side. And then last but not least, there was a specific scene that involved a chase sequence between somebody on a motorcycle and somebody on a car. Although very cool, and it kept me on the edge of my seat, there was very questionable decision making in that chase scene. It definitely could have ended a lot sooner. So when those situations happen, and it actually makes me question, like, should the character really have done that? That kind of drops the movie down just a little bit. Again, it didn't take me out of the experience, but did want to call that out. All right, those are all the pros and cons that I had about Crime 101. A more important question, though, is should you check this movie out? Should you watch this one in theaters or wait for streaming? My personal opinion, I would say check out Crime 101 in theaters. Again, there's going to be a lot of action, so the speakers and the spectacle of it will feel really cool. But it's not a game changer when it comes to crime thrillers or heist thrillers. There's definitely other films that might take the cake when it comes to those types of films. But I don't know, to me, it's an enjoyable time. You'll enjoy the performances. There's some funny moments, but there's always something interesting. And again, the editing will just make it seem so smooth and the story will just fly by. So my recommendation, go check this one out in theaters. All right, everybody, those are all of the non-spoiler thoughts that I wanted to cover on this podcast. Now is time to start spoiling more stuff about Crime 101 and also answer the important question, is this film timeless? Is it something that I can see myself rewatching in the future? But before we get there, I wanted to ramble a little bit, give you some time, because if you don't want to be spoiled, please jump out of the podcast now because we are going to spoil some stuff about this actual movie. Okay, hopefully I gave you enough of a break, enough of a time, because spoilers start right now. All right, Crime 101, I said it was fun. I enjoyed it. Let's answer the question that's on everybody's mind. Is Crime 101 a timeless movie? For me, in my personal opinion, I'm going to say that this movie is not timeless. Even though I said that it was really fun, I had a great time, I still have a little caveat to that. Even though I'm saying it's not timeless, I wouldn't mind rewatching it. I wouldn't mind checking it out with somebody that hasn't seen it, like a friend that wants to see something with action or with a heist element to it. I would definitely watch it with them again. There's enough there to maybe go back into it. But as of today, I'm going to say it's not timeless. However, Let me explain a little bit of why. Why wouldn't I go back myself just to rewatch it? Or maybe why wouldn't I own it on a Blu ray? I think one of the bigger reasons why I wouldn't want to rewatch this one is that I feel like there wasn't like a big time scene or a set piece that really got me to just be wowed. I mentioned it a little bit before. There's not like a game changing moment. There's not something that this does that is very different. Not saying it's formulaic, but there are those kind of elements where, okay, maybe you would expect to see this if you've seen a type of a heist movie before. Now, the editing of this movie is one of those pieces that it kind of made me, oh yeah, maybe I do want to rewatch this just to see those transitions and see those fades of one scene to another and following characters from one area to another in LA. That was just so cool to see. But again, those are some of the aspects. Again, not a big action sequence, not something that really wowed me. And then also, I'm really curious about this from you guys that have maybe seen it. So let me know down below in the comments if you agree. I actually felt like maybe this film shouldn't have focused so much on Chris Hemsworth's character of Mike. Although he is interesting, I actually cared more about Sharon, who is played by Halle Berry. She is an insurance broker, and Mark Ruffalo's character of Detective Lou. I cared more about them and their lives and what they were struggling with than I cared about Mike. Uh, and so I feel like if maybe the story would have revolved more around Sharon and Lou, I thought maybe that would have made me enjoy the film even more and made me want to go back to it. Now, that's not to say that Mike takes over the movie. He doesn't. I actually feel like Halle Berry, Mark Ruffalo, and Chris Hemsworth, they all have enough screen time. They kind of share it equally in a way. But I just felt there was a lot more scenes that were showing Mike and his story. Maybe we could have cut that out and shown more of Mark Ruffalo as Detective Lou or more as, Sharon and her story working as an insurance broker. So again, that's just me on a personal note. Speaking of the characters of this movie, I think this is a great segue into talking about who was my favorite performance. Hands down, Halle Berry was my favorite performance. I mean, she killed it in every single scene. There was this one moment where her boss, played by Paul Edelstein, I mean, he delivers this vicious line, like basically just like making her feel little. She was telling her like, "Don't threaten me. Like nobody's gonna want to hire you because of your age." It was disrespectful. And then what does Halle Berry's Sharon do? In the next couple of scenes, she just completely tells off her boss, played by Paul Edelstein, and completely just delivers this awesome line where like she's just telling him, "You know what? I might be 53 years old, but I know that I don't want to spend another minute working for you." And so she just, oh man, her delivery, the way that she's able to play emotion even by not saying anything. She has like these tears in her eyes sometimes when she knows that she's being bypassed and not being made a partner. It's just all this stuff. Like she and her performance is what made me like interpret the movie in a way of like, this movie isn't really about stealing and heist. This movie is about how these structures in jobs and corporations keep everybody down. You're working so hard and really you're not getting what you deserve. And so, and it was all through Halle Berry's performance. So to me, she is really what just is lights out in this film. Mark Ruffalo also does a great job, Chris Hemsworth as well, but Halle Berry was the highlight to me in this movie. Now, if I could call out one of my favorite scenes of the movie, didn't blow me away, but I thought it was very clever how they set it up. In the third act of this movie, you have a showdown. We have to get to the heist. And what is the heist? Well, you have Mike, who is going to be stealing a individual's, high value items that might be worth over $11 million. And he is going to pretend to be a private security individual. But what's so cool is that he's not the only one pretending. You also have Detective Lou, who is pretending to be an individual carrying these high value items. And then you also have Barry Keoghan, who is pretending to be a butler at this hotel where this heist is going to go down. And so you have this like three-way interaction where three people are pretending to be something that they are not, all in the idea to be able to steal or protect, in Detective Lou's case, the money that is going to be stolen or these high-value items that are going to be stolen. So how they set up this whole interaction and this climax of this situation between Detective Lou, you have Barry Keoghan's character of Orman, and Mike all pretending and eventually having a showdown. And it all leads to Barry Keoghan's character of Ormond getting shot. And who shoots him? It's Mike. Mike ends up shooting him to protect Detective Lou and not get killed. And so that's kind of that showdown. I just wanted to call that out. I thought that was a really cool moment within the movie. But let me know if you guys agree or disagree with my favorite performance and my favorite scene of this movie. Drop down a comment. Let me know if you agree, and let me know your favorite moment and scene or even performance of Crime 101. All right, everybody, that is all I had for this movie and the spoiler section as well. Like I always say on every podcast, these are just my opinions. Just because I think a movie is timeless or not timeless doesn't mean it's right. It's just my opinion. But I always want to hear from all of you. So send me an email, drop some comments. Let me know if you thought this movie was timeless, if you would recommend it to other friends and family to watch it, or if you just didn't think this movie was great at all. And maybe even better, recommend me some other crime thrillers and heist movies that you think are better. That way, maybe I can talk about those on the podcast as well. All right, everybody. This has been episode number 177 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. My name is Victor Vasquez. Thank you so much for listening to my full thoughts on Crime 101. Make sure to check out our next episode because we're going to be covering a new film starring Sam Rockwell, and it is called Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you all later.